Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, talking fishing. If it's facts about fishing that you want to know, then tune in, folks, cause this is the show. We'll show you all the right bait to use, so sit right back, you got nothing to lose. Doesn't really matter if it's trout or carp, flathead, marlin or a gummy shark. Listen to the guys and you can't go wrong. They'll be talking about fishing till the cows come home. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing.
Welcome everyone to Talking Fishing, and Happy New Year to all of our viewers around this great state, and we hope you had a safe and fish-filled New Year. My name is Adam Ring and I'll be keeping the host chair warm this evening as David Kramer puts his feet up at Narooma and enjoys the last few days of his holidays with the family. A big show coming to you tonight with all the regular segments, plus we talk about Victorian kingfish ahead of what is shaping up to be another crazy kingy season. Steve Trelly Trolful is resuming his usual seat on the couch, and Trelly, Happy New Year, mate, and did you manage to behave yourself this year?
Happy New Year to you too, Adam, and I was given the ultimatum, had to sleep in the camper with my wife Mary, and if I played up, it was out in the Scotch thistles. If I didn't play up, I was in the camper, so I took the soft option. I was a bit disappointed.
So you must be getting a bit weak in your old age, Charlie.
It was a good night. It was a good night.
And joining us on the couch this evening is a very special guest from Tuckerwell, Geelong. Now, Michael Moore, Happy New Year and welcome to Talking Fishing.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to talking about the fishing that's firing up down the bottom end of the bay, and I don't believe Steve behaved himself New Year's, no matter what he says.
Now, Michael, down in your neck of the woods, you're right in the thick of, I guess, the kingy phenomenon, which has taken over in the last few years in Victoria. Has this something that's been around for quite a long time, or is it really something new? Because it's only been the last few years that it's gotten, I guess, really popular and spread its way all the way up to the top end of the bay and across to the peninsula where we are. Is it something that's been happening for quite some time?
It was, and I mean, the kingfish was a huge thing down the bottom end of the bay up until about 1995, and then they disappeared completely for best part of 10 years, really. And it's probably the last 6 or 7 years they've really made a comeback, and the fish seem to be putting on a couple of kilos each year, so the average size is increasing all the time. Last year we probably had fish averaging 12 kilo as being the bigger fish. This year we're probably hoping to see fish averaging more 14 to 16 kilo, which would be nice to see.
Yeah, well, it's something that I guess the Victorian angler's really taken a massive grasp on.
Yeah.
And it's just not just snapper and whiting anymore, which is great. But just quickly, what would you put it down to? Do you think traps over towards, I guess, Eden and places like that have been taken away that's led to the resurgence? Yeah,
well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. We had that pilchard kill early in the sort of late 90s, and they disappeared. And the krill came into the bay then, and when the krill were in the bay, we didn't see any kingfish. The krill has disappeared since the kings have showed up again, and I think that the massive amounts of bait that have been coming to the bay over the last few years have really sort of drawn them in a lot more, so hopefully that continues.
Well, we'll have a chat a bit more about that later on the show, but for now, we'll jump straight into the catch of the week. Now, boys, have a look at some of these cracker catches taken over the last week. Now, this is young Jai, who had a cracker session on the King George whiting in the Turitan Channel, and have a look at the size of that.
It's good whiting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big fat fish, that's for sure.
It's about as wide as your shoulders, mate.
Close to it.
Yeah, bigger than that, young chaps.
Yeah, well, you'll notice a bit of a theme with Catch of the Week this week, as the kids have been getting straight into it. It's good to see that I guess everyone's parents have been making the most of the school holidays and getting them out on the water, and the King George riding are a great place to start.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing to get them out the front of the TV, off the TV. Well, I know we're on TV now, but get them away from the TV and get them out in the fresh air, and we're getting a lot more reports too from other areas of the state as far as getting the kids out, and lots of reports coming in with kids, which is a really good thing to see. Yeah,
that's it, and it definitely is a great thing to see. And moving on to the next capture as we cruise along. Now, Bob He's been fishing in the western entrance of Western Port and managed this great 10 kilo gummy shark. Now, the western entrance of Western Port, I guess, is renowned for big gummy sharks, but can be quite a difficult place to fish with the current.
Yeah, well, we have the same issue down at the bottom of around the heads in the tide, and you're generally finding the guys are using those longer leaders and things like that to help them out in the tide there. So that was a nice catch, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a place that I guess a lot of people talk about but don't really pick their times well to fish. It's a bit daunting knowing that the tide's going to be running that quick, knowing you've got to sort of got to be there in the night time to get a big one. But Bob did a great job there with a nice fish in the middle of the day.
Absolutely, yeah.
And moving on to the next catch, we've got Glenn Martin, who hasn't forgotten about the snapper. Now, that come from 22 metres in Mornington, and we've found over the last couple of weeks in particular that some nice fish have schooled up across in that end of the bay. Now, it's great. A lot of the small pinkies, which we normally associate with this time of the year, haven't quite schooled up that big there. And we're finding two size classes in fish, either that 2 to 3 kilos and then a 3 to 6 kilos. So it's just a matter of picking your marks and hoping that those big fish are on the chew, but it's a short move and you could be into them.
That's pretty deep, Mick. I mean, that's 22 metres. Does it get much deeper than that out there?
Out in the middle of the bay, that's about it. Yeah,
so that'd be pretty close, I think.
Yeah.
Sort of using Mornington as a base, they're fishing the deep water out there.
That was a big, deep fish, that one.
Yeah, great looking fish.
The last few shows have been talking like 17 metres, 18 metres, but now we're down to 22 metres now.
Yeah, well, as we start moving right into the, I guess, the really warm weather, we'll find the deep water fish will start to school up and can be sort of easy pickings with the sounder technology and things these days.
Work.
But so yeah, moving on to the next catch, another young fella, Joseph. He's been fishing off Point Cook with his family and managed this great catch to take home, a gummy shark and a nice bag of flatties.
Yeah,
so the flatties are another thing that's really sort of jumping up and dominating reports.
Yeah, they have. They've increased in size over the last few years. I can remember when I was a kid, you'd drift out there in the channels and...
Just yesterday?
Yeah, I wish. And you'd probably throw 70% of the fish back because they were undersized. But these days, guys are heading out there and they're getting those 60 centimetre flathead and nice bags of them as well. And there's no better eating, if you ask me.
I'd have to agree with you
prime
there.
fish and chips there.
Yeah, so they can keep dominating reports. That's just fine with me. And now moving on to the final catch of the week, young Brodie Dennehy. Have a look at this, boys. A little hammerhead shark coming out of Port Welshpool. So this is, I guess, not really uncommon, but I guess uncommon for our reports.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's very common up north, Cairns Way and that type of area. I've been up there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they're just litter up there, but we haven't, it's the first one we've had on it as far as report goes.
Yeah, that's right. So it's, I guess, Port Welshpool, renowned for a bit of shark fishing, but the hammerheads tend to come through this time of year. We won't see them for too long, but I know I did tell you that was the last catch of the week, Trelly, but I was just making sure you're paying attention because we've got another one here. Christina Pezos has been fishing in Emerald Lake and this beautiful rainbow trout coming out of there, and as you can see, she is absolutely stoked to have that fish there. And this is a credit to fisheries and all the stocking programs that are going on at the moment. They tend to fill these places up just before the school holidays, and we see some great catches like that. Yeah,
and again, the kids getting out and having a fish, so it's really, really good to see those reports coming like that.
Definitely. Now, if you would like to send a pic in to Catch of the Week, make sure you give us your full name and location, and this is what you have to do.
If you want to be like me and have your photo on TV, email your fishing picture info@ifish.com.au.
Coming up on Talking Fishing, Product of the Week, and we talk about all the little secrets to target the great Victorian kingfish.
Talking fishing. Talking fishing, talking fishing. Nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing.
Now, boys, just before we get into Product of the Week, I just want to remind everyone that the Facebook page is up and running. If you have a look for Talking Fishing at facebook.com, you can keep up to date with everything on tonight's show. Now, that covers all the Product of the Week, Catch of the Week, and all the little bits and pieces. And you can also shoot through any questions or anything that maybe we can bring up for next week. Any little bits and pieces you didn't quite understand from the show, we can elaborate and try and tidy up for you. So don't forget to jump on Facebook and log on to the Talking Fishing Facebook page. Hit the like button and keep up to date with everything we're doing on the show. You know all about that, wouldn't you, Trelly?
Oh, absolutely. I'm right up with all that sort of gear.
Now, we'll jump straight into the Product of the Week, which we're talking about, I guess, storage solutions for the average fisho, Trelly.
That's right. Now, we've got a few of these here. Now, we're starting off with this this bucket topper. So the bucket topper here, it fits all those buckets like the plasterers buckets. So there's generally heaps of these lying around off work sites and bits and pieces, and you gather a few of these reasonably easy. Fits straight on top. Okay, now we've got a couple of different sections here. So you've got your hooks and sinkers and whatever is quick access to get to on both sides here. Then these parts actually remove. So you've got one part there and you've got another part on that side. Now, luckily that these are exactly the same, because I was never good at putting square things in round holes, or round holes.
They had you in mind when they designed this one, Charlie.
You can't mix them up. They're really good. Now you'll see also there's underneath there's a little section there where you can perhaps put some bait, some pillies or pilchards or barley grubs and that type of thing. Not big enough for a can, but that's what the bucket's for underneath, so your ice and your cans can actually go underneath. So
I'm sure they'll come out with some sort of deluxe version that'll accommodate a can for you as well, Charlie.
Exactly. So, and a little bit of history. This is actually a Plano product. Now, a little bit of history. Now, Mick, do you know when Plano started? What year Plano started?
Oh, I could have a guess, but be wrong, that's for sure.
Have a guess.
Oh, let's say 1935.
Oh, you're close. 1932.
Oh, there you go.
1932.
Not a bad stab.
Been around for quite some time. Quality products, and the guys are always very, very conscious of good quality in their products. So yeah, this one's the slide series, the angle storage system. Right now, comes in two different sizes. Each size has its own features, but they're pretty similar to one another. The actual front, as you can see, slides back in, so your footprint in your boat is not always with that out. It actually stops at that point and slides back in. Now, these are at 15 degrees. Now, the idea of those being at 15 degrees is when that's in your boat sitting there like this, and the boat's going tips this way and tips that way and tips that way, they're not going to actually slide out unless you're, obviously on a really big angle. So that's a really important point, and that's why the angle system is actually working for you in this particular box. A couple little clear sections up the top here for just your common stuff again, and tackle boxes are one of those things that I find are one of the first things that gets packed into your car, and then the last thing's your rod and reel, right? So you pull your rod and reel out and you go, where am I going to put the hook and sinker? Because it's going to stick in the seat of the car or stick in the dog's ear or something like that. So you cut the hook and sinker off. With these little latches on top, it's really easy to get to. Drop your hook and sinker in there, they're out of harm's way. Get your rod and reel, stick it in the car, and away you go. So that's really, really handy. You've also got a storage compartment in the top here, which is slightly angled too at the same time, but it is reasonably big. It is reasonably big, which is really good. So you can get a fair bit into there. The top of the range model ones come with the slide outs. Actually are the waterproof version slide outs. So as you go up in your models, you actually pay more for them, but there are features to why that is so.
So they are a big and chunky tackle box. Maybe not so much more for the land-based guys, but appeals probably more to the boat guys, where they can just leave it on the boat and fill it up and change the trays depending on what they're doing on the day.
Yeah, you can. Although talking about that, you can put all your hooks and sinkers in the bottom one. If you're land-based, you can grab that, away you go, and come back and put them in the bottom. Plus, you can also sit on them. So they're actually strong enough so you can actually sit on them. So they're really good like that. So that's the angle storage system from Plano there, which is a really, really good one. Got a little pocket at the back there if you want to put your hat or whatever, or some other little storage spots there. So that's a really good one. Now we've got this shoulder bag here. Now I'll take my dummy here, my my mannequin. Mick.
Thanks for that.
So Mick will put this on.
I'll chuck that on there. That sits on there like that. So when you're just travelling, it's on your back. But when you want to get to something, you can bring it around the front, open it up. It gives you a nice little workspace. You can rig your lures, tie your knots, get your lures out, change them over, mix a drink, do whatever you like. It's ready to go. So
now that's actually got Velcro on the bottom of the the small tray inside as well.
Yeah,
so
so
even
it doesn't fall
around,
out. That's right.
It's not going
anywhere. Yeah, so you can pull it out again, do what you want with that. You can even use it for another storage space as well. So it's a great little unit. Guys just sort of need to be shown how they work, and they're fantastic and really comfortable too. Yeah. So yeah,
handy little product there for the travelling fisher, the land-based guy who doesn't need too much gear and is going to cover a few Ks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
2 pockets with 2 boxes. So
yeah. Another good thing about that, once you actually got it laid out, you can actually balance your rod and reel on top of that, so it's not actually in the water if you're wading, and then you can tie your next lure on or whatever, and then you can actually use it as a support for your rod and your reel as you're sort of going along, which is a good idea. Right, now the camo, Now I think it's fish camo. This one, fisherflage. This one, which is actually the name of the camouflage in these ones. Again, this one's a Plano product, and with we're going through the quality of these products as we were mentioning earlier. All the zippers in these are anti-rust. So salt water or fresh water, if they're in the boat and you happen to get swamped, they're really, really good as far as their hardware that they use in their zippers and things. These ones come with 4 stowaways. They all come with 4 stowaways. Come in a few different sizes. This one takes the stowaway, obviously that size, which I think is about 3600. But they do have a model a bit bigger, which takes a bigger stowaway. So handier for we use in freshwater as far as cod lures and things like that, which is really good.
There's only one issue I can see with that bag, Charlie.
Yeah.
You can't put it down the grass because you never find it.
No, that's right. Where'd my bag go? You'll get a few answers out of that. Yeah. So yeah, and carry strap comes with a carry strap, and you've also got your pockets, each side, front and back. And all of them come with a waterproof base, which is really, really handy. Again, bit of water in the bottom of the boat, or if it's just rained or something like that, it just doesn't absorb water back up through your materials. So that's another little quality product as far as a storage system.
Now, Charlie, the next bag you've got there would have to be my all-time favourite.
Yeah, these are really good. Probably you guys down here are probably a bit more familiar with these Shimano bags. The Banner bag has been really, really popular over the years. And I must say, you can pull them out of the shed, in a 2 or 3 or 5 years' time, and they just don't deteriorate. They just keep going and going and going.
And I think that's the appeal to the bag. They're basic. There's not pockets everywhere, so you're not losing anything.
Yeah. And
you're maximising your space inside the actual bag, so you can fill it full of whatever you want, whether it's 2 trays, 3 trays, 6 trays. The bigger one will even take. And everything's right there. It doesn't matter if it gets wet, fully waterproof case, and away we go.
That's right. Good thing with this bag too is it'll fit all your bigger lure boxes in it. Now, if you're travelling on a plane, what you do is you take all your lure boxes out, put them in your check-in luggage, take all the clothes out of that, put them into this because it fits in the overhead locker.
That's right.
Right, so it's really, really handy to be able to sort of move your gear around and have something you can take on board a plane if you're travelling. And then when you get there, put all your fishing tackle back into it. And it's the ideal bag when you're on your boat.
So there you go. That's I guess there's plenty more of this stuff on the market as well, and various different sizes and models. So jump into your local and have a look around because there's some great gear on the market when it comes to organising and storing your fishing tackle. Now, boys, before we go to the next break, I want to have a little bit more of a chat about these kingfish. Now, Michael, how easy is it to find them? How do you approach it? Because I guess we've got 2 parts of this. There's an offshore part, and there's also a part inside the bay itself. How do you go about finding these fish?
Well, you generally look for a heap of boats hanging around in one spot down near the heads, and but as a rule, there's spots inside and outside the heads. Fishing around the heads, you need to be very aware of the safety down there. That's the most important thing. Guys down there are leaving it too long to get out of the way of ships and things like that. But to go out there and find them, I find my favourite way to target them is jigging. As a rule, it's as much fun as you can really have in fishing, I reckon. And you need to get out there where those boats are, sound around, look for fish from the bottom to between the bottom and probably the top quarter of the water column, and just start jigging. Really, I mean, a lot of guys down there that have probably been catching them for a month or so tend to use the lead lines, and that's about as much fun as poking yourself in the eye with the knitting needle. But the jigging, a few guys over the last few years have really sort of tried some new stuff, downriggers with rigged gars, rigged squid, things like that, and they've been producing some really good results as well. When you're jigging, it also pays to drift along and even just have a squid strip with a ball sinker in front of it down there, because when they get into that frenzy, after you hook one fish, as you probably know, they tend to fire the other one up. If you've got a bait in the water as well, that's likely to get hit as well. So that's the main thing. Look for those fish, start jigging. If you go offshore, you might be drifting along with a shark trail or something like that. You will often find that the schools of those what we call rats will come up in there, and they'll hang around the boat for a long time if you can keep the fish hooked up too. So.
And what's a typical size kingfish for here in Victoria? Are we talking, the big stongers we see in South Australia, these 30 kilo models, or are we looking at something a little bit I guess, a little bit smaller, ranging from size to just under?
I think we'll get to the point where we will see those big fish over the next probably 5 or 6 years, but as a rule, the fish around the heads area over the last couple of years have probably been between 6 and 14 kilo, and they are getting bigger each year. The ones offshore, what we call the rats, are generally those 40 to 70 centimetre fish, but in saying that, the offshore waters are producing some good sized fish as well, especially between Point Lonsdale and Barwon Heads, those offshore reefs in between 20 and 40 metres of water.
If I was to look at the sounder, like you say, they're in certain water column in the top or the bottom or the half.
Yep.
If I was to look at my sounder and say they're in the top 1/3 of the water column,
Yep.
do I only drop down that far and start jigging, or do I drop right to the bottom and start jigging? Because
I would tend to try and target that depth you're going to see them at, but generally when they're really feeding, and kingfish are one of those fish, they're either having a really good chew or they're shut down completely. There's not a lot of in between there. When you see them on the sounder, and they're in the mood to have a good chew, you can tell that they're really moving around the place just by the marks on your sounder, and they won't be at one depth. They'll be down the bottom, they'll be up the top. So you really probably ideally drop down the bottom and work it all the way to the top.
coloured line, like the metered line, coloured like purple, blue, pink. Because sometimes I get to look over there just for the second and jig, and your jig flies up out of the water.
Yeah, well, that often happens
I always
too.
find it handy.
That's probably a benefit, stop you getting hit in the eye by the jig, but what you find out in the heads, you might be jigging in 14 metres of water, you might shoot 50 metres, next minute you're in 45 metres of water. So you need to be watching your sounder while you're jigging and allowing that extra line to get down to the bottom.
So hold that thought. We'll come back to that because there's heaps we can talk about here. Up next, fisheries news and plenty more to discuss about these big Vic Kings. See you after this.
Talking fishing. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing.
And now it's time for the news, the fisheries news. Sounds a bit fishy to me.
Now, boys, not a lot of news coming out of fisheries this week, but just one little one here as a little reminder about Yabby fishing rules, which, Charlie, this is probably a little bit more relevant to the boys up at Shepparton than it is down here. But it's just a quick reminder of some of the few rules and regulations. Obviously, Opera House nets are a big one.
Yeah, Opera House nets are a big one as far as the... one, they're illegal in public waters.
That's right.
Legal in private water, but it's like a lot of those bait traps. The entrance is the big problem with native, like platypus and things like that. So I think it's around about 35 mil is the actual hole distance. But yeah, that's it. That is a thing with.
Yeah. Now it quotes here that anglers can use or possess a total of 10 nets, whether recreational hoop nets or open top lift nets in inland waters. But no more than 5 recreational hoop nets can be used in the Goulburn, Ovens, Glenelg, Latrobe, Tara, Mitamita and Kiewa river systems. So it's this is where it all gets a little bit confusing. I think you're best to grab yourself a fisheries book or jump onto the fisheries website and really get up to date with this, because it then continues to say that the same limit applies to Wodonga Creek, Rhines Creek, Waranga Basin, Carroll's Creek, or in any tributary of those waters or any of their impounded waters. So it's a bit all over the place.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty confusing, but yeah, you just got to sort of wade through the information a little bit to find out what you can do where. But I think if you you're sticking to that 5 limit, you're pretty much covered everywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Now, as far as a catch limit goes, it states a daily catch limit for recreational anglers in or next to Victorian waters is 20 litres of whole yabbies, 150 individual yabbies, or 5 litres of yabby meat, not exceeding 150 tails. So it's just they throw a hell of a lot of numbers at you. And you really do need to read it a few times and wrap your head around it. So again, I suggest you do get yourself a fisheries book, which are free from all good tackle stores, or jump onto the DEPI website and really get a good look at this, because it does go on to say a little bit more, which just reading it seems to be more of a possession limit if you're away for a few days.
Yes.
listen, jump onto the website and have a look at this, because it is a little bit confusing, but you need to know your limits. There's no excuses there for taking too many or having too many nets.
Yeah, the thing is with yabbies too is sometimes of the year they're actually, there's thousands, there's literally thousands sometime of the year, some years in some times of the year, and then sometimes they're a little bit hard to get, so spreading them between people and taking just your fair share is probably, you know, a lot of the laws are aimed at sort of doing.
Now I did, before the break, I did say we're going to talk a little bit more about the kingfish, and we will get there, but I just thought now I'd take the time to update everyone on the Lake Tolondo situation. It's something that David Kramer is very passionate about and has had a lot about, has been involved a lot with getting it to where we're just about at now. And there was an article written which popped up on a few of the social media sites around the internet saying that water is imminent. It's probably been the best sign we've had so far that something is going to happen.
Yep.
That 5,000 megalitre, like a lot of water, is about to be released. We still haven't got an exact date, but it did imply that it could be as little as days away. So there's good news on the horizon there.
Yeah, and hopefully by next week, and reporting in next week, we should have some more news on that one.
Yeah, that's right. So, listen, the Tolondo thing's been going for quite some time, and we've covered it to death, I will say, but it's important. We're right there. There was a little hiccup with the gate being opened illegally, and there was a little bit of water that got in, and unlucky, and I think we're all very lucky that it hasn't probably affected the final outcome.
No, that's right, and I'm not too sure what the level is at the moment. Is there a level? I haven't seen the latest.
No, I haven't seen the level, but we've been talking that it's we're critical. Like they could be expecting fish kills in a matter of weeks, and I'm sure the week we just had with 40 degrees constantly wasn't great for it.
That's right, yeah, you get a fair bit of evaporation. Plus, those lakes too, if they're a little bit shallow, you get a lot of movement across the mud flats when you're getting a bit of wind, and that doesn't help with evaporation because a lake can move, 100 metres. You can set up your tent there in the morning, and in the afternoon you've got water through your tent because it's changed from an easterly wind to westerly wind. I'm not too sure with that particular lake. I think it's the edges or the sides aren't quite as flat as that, but evaporation is really it's something you look at this time of year. Yeah,
that's it. So stay tuned there. We'll keep you up to date as soon as we get more information. But it looks as though that there could be water very soon for Tolondo. Now, just getting back to yabbies, it's something that a lot of people really see as bait, but they're a great food source.
Oh, fantastic.
How do you go about catching them? What's the easiest way to go about getting them, Charlie?
Oh, you give your mate $10 and tell him to go and get some.
Send the kids down.
That's right. Well, actually, that is one of the biggest things, because when you're actually catching yabbies, a lot of them are just those big, open ring nets, with a float on top, and you can just pull them out of the water. And a lot of the time, the waters you're actually in aren't that deep, because the yabbies don't like the deeper water because it's cold. When you go swimming and your toes are down the bottom, it's all cold. Yeah. So, it's just those shallow waters and some of those little creeks that are actually quite shallow. So a lot of times you can actually sort of wade in to your knees and actually drop your nets and sort of pick them up. So they're really good fun for kids. A little bit of meat in the bottom. And
do you find any sort of meat works better? Can you just throw in any, a fish carcass, or do you cat food, or do you go and get a liver? Or
I feel it's good. Usually like livers and lungs and things like that from the butcher shop. We try and put in some old ducks from last duck season, but it doesn't work that well. But livers and lungs seem to be something with a bit of blood content in it, that type of thing. Even a bit of cat food, if you just run a bit short, punch a couple of holes in a tin of cat food, tie that in the bottom of it, and make sure you tie it in the middle. And that works quite well too. So,
and very quickly, how do you cook them? Just boil them?
Oh, look, I think they really are best just boiled, just salt boiled. It's like a lot of things, we overdo it, we put curries with it, and we turn it that way. That's fine after you get sick of them, but I think the best way to cook, and they're so sweet.
Just keep it basic.
Sweet. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Good. Now, Kramer's mailbag is up next, and we'll continue our conversation on Big Vic Kings that we mentioned before this break. So we'll see you after this.
Talking fishing. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing.
Now, Kramer's mailbag, boys. I think it's a bit unfair. We can still call it Kramer's Mailbag, seeing that he's
Wow.
taken the night off. So it's now officially the Adam Trelly and Michael Mailbag segment.
Good work.
We've had a few, viewers jump on Facebook and send a few questions through to us even. Now, Rory Grosser sent one through to us, boys, and asking, do you know any good squid spots in Port Phillip Bay? Now, Michael, I know you're down in some beautiful squid area down there in Geelong. Can you sort of point Rory in the right direction?
Yeah, I'm down in Point Lonsdale, and it's probably the capital of the squid, I think, in Victoria, down there between the two lighthouses at Queenscliff and Point Lonsdale, what they call the Lonsdale Bight there. You do have a marine park going through there, so you need to be aware of the boundary of that and stay well and truly out of it. But that's where the really big squid come from, the bottom of Port Phillip Bay. And as you get around the corner into the bay proper and past Queenscliff up towards Swan Bay, the squid are right through there. And again, they go right around to Clifton Springs, generally decreasing in size as you head into the bay further. But really good numbers, Clifton Springs, Port Arlington, Indented Head, Queenscliff, and as you're coming back down, the size does tend to pick up. So
yeah, that's right. We find up through the peninsula, I know, down at Mornington there. Basically, the good thing with calamari, you find any water with depths of 1 to 5 or 6 metres with a bit of broken ground, reef, sand, there's going to be calamari. But you're spot on what we're saying. We don't see the quality and the size of the calamari as you guys do down south a little bit further. So there you go, Rory. Anywhere where you've got a bit of broken ground between 1 and 6 metres of water, you'll find calamari. The next one's another Facebook one, boys, from Hank Nikodemski, and I apologise if I've pronounced that wrong. Can you tell me more about lifting boat sizes at Blue Rock?
Lifting boat
sizes. Now, this was part of the new Victorian State Government's plan for fisheries, and they did mention that this was something they'd look at.
The boat size or motor size?
Well, even being able to put a powered boat. I guess they got a 5 horsepower or something small like that at the moment. Hank, we haven't heard too much as of yet. I know it still is in the works. It's something that was delivered to us as part of the Victorian Government's plan for recreational fishing. So we will keep you up to date on that because it's a great question and it's a beautiful fishery that's dying to be fished properly. So Hank, thanks for that, and we'll keep you up to date. That's all we've got for Kramer's Mailbag this week, but we'll take this opportunity to acknowledge the Western Port Whiting Challenge coming up. Jump onto the Whiting Challenge Western Port Angling Club website and get all your details there because it's definitely well worth entering, and $1,000 from Paul Worsling in cash to the first 1 kilo whiting that gets weighed in. So a great little comp, some great prizes. Make sure you get the info and get involved. And don't forget about Facebook. I know we mentioned it earlier in the report. In the show, just jump onto Facebook. You can send us all your questions and we can send them through and get them going as part of Kramer's Mailbag. So, fellas, just before we throw to the next break, there's one more thing I would like to mention, and that's just be careful of the fire situation at the moment. We've just had our first run of 40-degree days. If you're planning trips, jump onto the CFA Australia website and make sure that none of the tracks are being blocked or you're not going to get trapped in anywhere. So just make sure you stay in touch with that because that's the last thing you want to be trapped in there. So if you'd like to write to Kramer or any of us fine-looking gentlemen, this is what you have to do.
Send your mail to Kramer's Mailbag, PO Box 734, Patterson Lakes, Victoria 3197, or email kramer@ifish.com.au.
Now, boys, I'm dying to get back into a little bit more kingy talk because I think for Victorian fishing, this is about as exciting as it gets. Now, Michael, what sort of gear are we talking about when we start trying to get geared up for these kings? Do you need to go that really heavy tackle, 30-kilo drag type stuff, or can you do it light on, say, a 4,000 size spin reel and have a bit of fun?
Remembering that where Michael comes from, your background is decking on the boat, doing all this type of stuff. So that's really good information for people out there that actually, Michael did work on these boats and did take care of customers day after day and rig up like this. So it's really good.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys overdo it with their tackle sometimes. The same thing with the tuna. They're going for they think they're always going to be catching these massive fish. The majority of these kings at the moment, as I said, are probably between 8 and 14 kilo. So something like about a 10,000 style reel, whether that's
Stella.
it can be Saragossa, something capes, just a good honest reel that's nice and strong. And again, those jig rods, a lot of guys will also have a popper rod ready. And when I say have a popper rod ready in the heads, I don't mean have the popper rod in the rocket launcher with the popper clipped into the guide. That popper rod needs to be laying against the gunnel with the popper swinging off the end of it, because these kings, when they bust up on the top, they'll probably only be up for 5 or 10 seconds. So it's a matter of you've got to get your hand on that rod, whip it out there really quick. Otherwise, they're gone before you've even got it out of the rocket launcher.
Well, I think that's why they're such a popular and such a great fish. You can catch them in so many different ways, and topwater is becoming absolutely massive. And whether it is kingfish or cod trelly, I mean, how many more service lures are we going through this year than what we have been in previous? So they really are a species that love that topwater lure, and there's nothing more exciting.
Slider or blop, 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 pop?
Generally more of a popper, and it's generally not a matter of working it really quickly. If you get your popper into that school, the last thing you want to do is rip it out of that school. It's generally a matter of basically twitching it in the school.
Oh, okay. Pause and twitch.
Pause and twitch, and not move it out of that school in a real hurry.
In the strike zone. Leave it in the strike zone.
Leave it in the strike zone as much as you can. But in the same time, you want to be adding a reasonable amount of life to that popper. So not ripping it out like you see these guys fishing for GTs and stuff like that, where they're really getting that popper going across the surface. More of a bloop, bloop, twitch, twitch, give it a bit of a vibration on the surface, and hopefully they'll turn around and monster it.
Now, what about live bait? I know if there's probably more reports we've had through fish being taken on live baits than there has been on anything, I guess, in the last few years. How easy is it to catch a live bait? Because I know it's something it can be quite tough. It's still fishing, whether it is for bait or whether it is for the kings themselves, it still is fishing and it can still be tough. Is there a few places around the bay, I guess, probably in the vicinity of where you'd be catching these kingfish that you can pull up and get baits fairly easily?
No. Later in the season, the last couple of years, we have found bait in the Queenscliff area, but it's generally been later in the season, big schools of slimies. A lot of guys will head offshore in that 20 to 40 metre zone off Point Lonsdale, Barwon Heads, and pick up their slimies out there. There's been plenty of slimies and yakkers down there, and then come back into the heads and fish them. The other spot is up in the middle of the bay. If I go into too much detail, I'll have a lynch mob on the front doorstep. But there's plenty of slimies in certain areas up in that 20 metre area in the bay. If you sound around, put down a burley trail, bait jigs, and you're set. But either way, you do have to travel away from the fishing zone to get your bait and bring it back in there.
Aerated bucket.
Oh, you need plenty of air going through slimies. As well as that, live squid is another good option, whether they're arrow or calamari, they'll work as well.
I guess they'll be a little bit more accessible than maybe some of the slimies.
They are around Queenscliff for sure. So if you can pick up some nice little bait-sized squid, that's another good option if you don't want to do those big runs either outside the heads or up the middle of the bay. Because when you're running up the bay, it's probably a 20k run each way, just to go up, get your bait, then come back to the heads.
Yeah, so I guess plenty of trip around getting bait, because it's definitely well worth it. Now, coming up on Talking Fishing, this week's hotspots and what's coming up on C31 fishing. We'll see you right after this.
Talking fishing. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing.
Hello, Richie Minnow here. It's now time for this week's fishing hotspots on Talking Fishing. Marvellous.
Good to see Richie Minnow hanging around in 2015 as we roll into another segment of hotspots. We're going to start off, a common denominator for hotspots this week, fellas, has definitely got to be the King George Whiting. We're well and truly into that part of the season now where they really do dominate reports from both Western Port and Port Phillip. But we'll start off over in Western Port in the Tooradin Channel, where it hasn't just been the King George Whiting that have been getting around. There's been a few nice gummies taken outside the channel there for the guys that want to push out after getting a bag of whiting fairly easy. But the shallow water, like many other spots around the Bay Boys, is fishing quite well. So it's definitely get up in there. Shallow water, 1 to 3 or 4 metres. Run out tide's generally best as you come out of the channel, as the fish get I guess, almost swept off the banks and pushed into the channel, so they're a little bit easier to find.
Yeah, chase those sand patches and.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, look for a bit of weed around and a bit of sand, and you'll be able to pick the holes and catch them as they flood off the banks there. So, not just the whiting, you can sneak out the front and get a nice gummy as well, which we've also seen.
And like you say, you're getting all those pictures coming in, photographs coming in. It's just every week, just about.
Exactly. You almost feel as though you're harping on about the same thing every week.
Yeah.
But the fishing's that good, and we're in that type of.
Well, when we stop talking about it, it's not happening.
That's right. So just as we finish talking about King George whiting, we'll head over to the middle spit where let me tell you, there's more King George whiting being taken. Middle spit would have to be, I guess, just a massive whiting beacon.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's another one that comes up regularly, doesn't it, as far as a whiting spot? But like you say, this time of year, it's whiting.
Yeah, that's right. And I think if you were going to go anywhere to try and chase a bag of whiting, then the middle spit would have to be close to number one. I know there's plenty of places in both Western Port and Port Phillip that fish really well for whiting, but it's just something that produces every year. You can get right up the top end in the shallow water. You can sit just off the spit itself. And sit in a little bit deeper. You're looking sort of 6 or 7 metres, where a lot of the charter boats operate, especially in bigger boats, because they're not having to try and manoeuvre
What's your
right up on the shallow
rig
water.
for bait for whiting?
My favourite rig, I don't know, I've never fished Western Port before, and I don't know what the tide flow's like through, say, the middle spit. Is it
very similar to the southern part?
Yeah, so the southern part. We will generally fish a leader of about 1.5 to 2 metres long down in the tide at Queenscliff. The theory behind that is a small flag in a breeze sits there going like that. The bigger flag is more like this. So it's about keeping that bait looking really natural, especially in the tide. You really want to tenderise that squid as well. A lot of guys are thinking that they're tenderising the squid purely to release the flavour of the squid. But another reason that we tenderise the squid so well down around Queenscliff is to get those sharp edges off the squid, which if there's any sharp edges up near the top of your hook, it acts a bit like a propeller, making your bait spin in the tide as well. So you really want to get that squid down to almost like butter. So it's difficult to get on the hook when it's like that, but it won't spin, and the whiting absolutely love it when it's that soft.
Beautiful. Now, and moving on to our next hotspot, we're still in Western Port over to Coronet Bay. This is my type of whiting fishing. This is shallow water, very visual. You're looking for those sand patches in amongst all the weed, and you're basically hopping on those patches looking for a school of fish. You might only spend 5 or 6 minutes on each patch until you find the one where they've been located, and you can literally sit there and catch one after the other.
You can actually fish land-based, can you? Like walk along and spot where you want to
can.
cast?
Well, Coronet Bay, not so much. It's hard to access land-based, but moving further down towards the entrance there, you can get out there and do it. It's not easy just because of the tidal water. But a great report with the King George whiting in Coronet Bay. We've had calamari sitting under the boat and actually attacking whiting as you're trying to land them. So similar to what you were talking about with the kingy poppers, have that jig ready to go, so you can just slip it over the side, get yourself a calamari as well. So definitely some exciting fishing happening down there. Moving on, we're into Port Phillip Bay now and Point Cook. I know Trelly and Michael, you've both been talking to Caesar up there at Laverton, and things are starting to hot up there.
Yeah, there's been some good reports coming back through at the Laverton store up that area. Again, it's a bit of a repeat what Michael's saying. Your proper rigging and techniques to catching fish. But we're getting some good reports on whiting up around that area for sure.
And we saw in Catch of the Week, there's the flatties and the gummies and bits and pieces going on there as well. So definitely fishing really well there. Heading over to Mornington, if you want to catch a snapper, if you haven't had your snapper fix yet, you want to get out into the deep water around Mornington, and that's not just Mornington. That's moving further down the peninsula as well, down towards the heads through Mount Martha, and as you get closer to the heads there, the deep water is definitely the go.
Again, that snapper coming out of 22 metres of water.
Exactly.
So
if things are warm, that the water temperature is up, and the fish tend to school up in that deep water to get out of the heat.
Where's Dave? Where's he? No reports from Dave. Where's Dave?
We'll save that to next week. I'd rather embarrass him on TV when he's here as well. So we'll leave that to next week. And number 6 for the travellers with the school holidays. Malakuta Inlet's been huge. There's a lot of big flatties. Michael, you've fished there a few times over the years and seen the size of some of the flatties that these systems can hold up there in Gippsland. And now with an offshore ramp too, the kingfish thing spreads down that far, and there's gummies offshore there too.
Access is vital as far as your fishing goes, but that's been opened right up down that way of the world, so you can get out, get in. Yeah, that's right. It's something they've been screaming out for quite a long time, because the offshore fishing there has always been good. Yes. It's just now they can really get access now to do all that. So
it's been a long battle down there for them to get that ramp.
It has.
Half the town wanted it, half the town didn't. So they finally got it. So
it has. So
it's good.
There you have it. That's hotspots for this week. And I know we spoke a lot about whiting in that little session there, but I guess it is that time of year. And in the tidal water, I know Western Port is very tidal, so those guys are used to it. Yep. They tend to get up on the shallow banks. Is that similar to what happens down in the southern part of Port Phillip there, Michael? Do you generally fish deeper, or do you try and get up on the banks and find the fish on those sand patches? Yeah,
well, the grass beds at Queenscliff are probably averaging between 2.5 and 4 metres deep, which is a real popular sort of depth right through to St Leonard's. And again, once you get around that corner into the Lonsdale Bight, you find it becomes a lot reefier. So you are sort of potholing those little sand holes to pull maybe 2 or 3 whiting from a drop. And as you said, you don't spend too much time on one spot. If you haven't had a whiting in 10 or 15 minutes, you want to pull up the anchor and move. And it's not a matter of moving 500 metres. You might only need to move 20 or 30 metres to actually put yourself onto the fish. But generally, most of the whiting areas down our way would be in that 2 to 6 metres of water for sure.
And are you burleying hard the whole time? I mean, if you are moving so frequently and so often, are you really going hard with the burley right from the get-go?
Not as a rule. Normally, your pippy shells and those sort of bits and pieces are enough. Quite often you find if you put too much burley in, you're attracting those undesirable fish like your banjos and your old maid sharks and things like that. And as soon as one of those move in amongst a school of whiting, they're gone. They scare them off. So,
do you find you get the small bycatch do the smaller pinkies really flood the shallows up there as well? I know in Western Port it happens a bit too. You can be catching whiting 1 second and all of a sudden a tiny little snapper move in and away you go.
Yeah, they do. And in past years they have. This year has been a little bit of an exception where we haven't had those huge numbers of small pinkies coming into the bay over our side. Normally they're like piranhas at this time of the year. So they've really gone a bit quiet. But really the best burley for your whiting is catching whiting, because they spew it up, and you know yourself when you put the whiting into the bin, you'll always find sandworms floating around amongst them and stuff like that. So when you're whiting them in, they're spewing all that stuff up and their mates are just chasing them.
Regurgitating sounds good.
Yes, that sounds much nicer.
So it really does sound as though the rules that, I guess the Western Port guys abide by, generally the same sort of thing as you move down the tidal water in Port Phillip Bay as well. So it's good to know you can flick between the two and get a good bag of whiting no matter where you go. So it's time now to have a look at what's coming up on C31 fishing tonight. Immediately following us at 9:30 p.m. is Catch and Cook, and at 10 p.m. Charlie dominates another episode of Savage Seas Adventures. Now, moving on to tomorrow, 6:30 a.m, we've got a new show called Liquid Vision. It's from the producers of Destination Blue. Comes another underwater fishing and seafood cooking show based in Victoria. Liquid Vision's presenters are Shane Harrison and Danny Henricks, who are heavily involved and experienced in underwater fishing with a combined extensive knowledge of the Victorian coast. So there you go, Liquid Vision. That's 6:30 a.m. on Wednesday. And on Thursday, 6:30 a.m. Australian Fishing Network, and at 10 p.m. Liquid Vision. Friday, 6:30 a.m, Catch and Cook, 7 a.m, Liquid Vision, and then Saturday, the big extravaganza continues on C31 Fishing. We've got 10 a.m, Liquid Vision, then 10:30 a.m, Savage Seas Adventures, 11 a.m, Australian Fishing Network, 11:30 a.m, That's Fishing, and 12 noon at Catch and Cook. And then you can grab it all again on Saturday night, starting at 6:30 p.m, That's Fishing, 7 p.m, Liquid Vision, and 7:30 p.m, Australian Fishing Network. So there you go, boys. C31 is still the home of fishing.
That is. Very good.
And next week we'll be welcoming Dave. There's another episode of Talking Fishing in the Bank.
That's right, and very good. David? No, actually, I do. I like this spot. It's got a good armrest on this side. It's really good.
Tell you what, it's been all right keeping the seat warm for Dave, but he'll be welcome back next week, I think. I think. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Michael Moore for joining us in the studio. Thanks a lot, mate. It's been great to have you in the chair and give us all the information on the kingfish down in the Port Phillip Heads.
No, it's been a pleasure, and I love talking about fishing, and thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. And don't forget, you can pop down to Tackle World Geelong at any time and pick Michael's brain for even more information. He's there 5 days a week, so get down there and say g'day and get all the information on those big kings. Now, that's it for Talking Fishing. Hope you enjoyed the show, and next week, David Kramer will be back in the driver's seat and Trelly and I will probe him for all the info on his recent trip to Narooma. Until then, have a great week and enjoy your fishing.
We got all you need, just take a look. Watch those fish jump on your hook. So just relax and take your time. Enjoy the show, then drop us a line. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing. We're talking fishing. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing. We're talking fishing. Talking fishing.